All right, welcome everybody around the world. So basically, and my subscribers, importantly. So first, before I forget, I just wanted to say, because I was thinking about this, I should say thank you for all the support from my various subscribers. Um, Also, my couch is a little disorganized because the cat's here. He's sitting next to me. I couldn't really straighten out the couch because he's sitting on the cloth. I just need a mental break because you wouldn't believe how much I've been writing in these last few days to get this book um, ready to go. I Before just sending it off, I wanted to something told me, look, just stop and think about anything else you'd want to include, right? Because after I wrote my theology book, I had a little chapter about 2023, but I didn't want to include all the stuff I knew about 2023, like all the evidence, because I was like, no, that should be a separate book. My dad was dying at the time, and I had worked so hard on the theology part. I was like, I'm not going to spend more time writing stuff. It's a whole separate book, right? So I mentioned that. I just stuck a little chapter in as a preview type thing. But I always regretted it because in the 3 years I never made the book for 2023. I really should have, and I feel stupid for not doing it, really. Um, but nonetheless, I really wanted to stop and give myself time to think about anything else to include. And basically, the book is probably twice as big as I thought it was going to be, or 50% larger. There's just so much extra stuff that I figured I might as well include in this book as well. And like even when I talked about my prophetic dream, I have a very good, sensible disclaimer saying that, I can't remember my exact wording. Like, I don't want anybody, I don't know if this is really from God or if it's genuine. I say all that. And say I don't want anybody becoming fixated on it or treating it like scripture, right? So I do the right thing. But I wanted to describe it because, if it is, I wasn't even going to put that in the book, right? But then I thought to myself, like, you have been having these dreams for 30 years. What if they are real? What if all this is going to happen and you never put it in that book? What are you going to do? Go make another book just about your dream? You know what I mean? Come on. So I might as well include it in this book because it's all about the end of days, right? So little decisions like that, excuse me, is what has prolonged it a little bit. Let me take a sip of my drink. Sorry. But that chapter is like it. Like I honestly try, and I don't want to spend long on this part, but like I wanted to write a small chapter on it, like a page or two. And I even say that, like, I don't want to spend pages writing about this. But all I did was like I'm sitting here describing the key events, the fiery star, blah blah blah. And then I'm like, well, there's other things that are important to mention. Like, I just felt compelled, like I have to at least mention this. So even though I kept everything super abbreviated, like where I talk about the Giants, it's like a few sentences basically type thing. It's not even much. But and I don't even think my dream is that complex. Like there's only a few major events that occur, but like just to describe all the important things that need to be mentioned, I haven't counted the pages, but like is many pages, which is kind of dismaying because it's in short form. You know what I mean? It's like it's a quick written. You know what I mean? I kept everything like shorter, and it still ended up being that long. But it's a very excellent read, and I think it's important to mention it all. But little things like that have delayed the book, and the other, it's like ready to go now. There's just something else I want to put in there, and even today I was like, look, I don't want to send this book off yet. Let me really stop and think. Like, what if I send the book off and then because I've been doing my studies this last while. I've been working on the book, right? So instead of doing my studies, I've been spending hours and hours and hours every single day. The last few days, like 16 hours, I don't even know, like something ridiculous, right? We're going to bed at like 6 o'clock in the morning and then waking up in the middle of the day and then starting the book, starting back on the book just to get it done. Um, I can't remember why I was saying that now, but anyways, I really wanted to take time. Oh, that's what I was saying. Like, what if I send the book off and then I realized another like major thing, like major epiphany or discovery type thing. It'll be like too late. I can't go put it in the book. You know what I mean? I'm not going to make a second book for one thing. So, and I've been doing my studies. That's what I was saying, right? So, I usually do my studies every day. Every day I'm looking for another piece of evidence, right? So, I've been doing that. So, I'm kind of worried that if I rush, or be too hasty and I send this thing off I know Murphy's Law is going to be something else, but whatever. It's going to be what it is. Like, I want it to go off tonight. Um, Hopefully, I'll have it wrapped up very, very soon, like in the next few hours or so, type thing. Um, but yeah, I did find out one thing which I didn't know before. It was like a little minor discovery that I put in the book, but it's important though, even though it's not like a big major thing. It's important because this was like, I can't say like a hole in my theory. That's certainly not fair to say. But I have the plethora of everything I have been writing about. I have to talk about, the beast kingdom, Islam, and that's another thing that took extra long. I wasn't planning to write all about that, um, like I don't want to say too much now, anyways, right? But Islam and all of that, right? I wasn't planning on going through that whole discourse, right? Because that's a whole nother book in itself, type thing. But when I got to the chapters on the pillars, I'm just like, pillars of proof, and it's the prophecy of Daniel, and it's talking about Islam as the beast kingdom. I got to start offering up scriptural proof for that, right? So it ended up being many, many, many pages, showing all the evidence for that. So that's the one last thing I'm actually working on now is, one of the chapters of Daniel, almost the entire chapter is about the founding of that final beast kingdom. And I want to do the more thorough thing and have a nice breakdown, because that would be the ultimate proof. There's like 20 verses I've got, and every single one is identifies what I've been talking about, right? So, little things like that, it just added extra time, make it longer. I hadn't planned to put all this stuff in there. But one discovery that I made was about the seven heads of the beast kingdom, right? Because all the stuff I've been talking about, there's always been one thing that I never really stopped to solve in all my studies in these years was who were, like thoroughly solving who were the seven heads that are mentioned in Revelation 17, right? Because it talks in the next verse, it mentions the 10 kings, and I've talked about that. That's the first 10 rulers of Islam. There are lots of verses to back all that up. That's concrete. But like, what's with the seven heads? Like, I couldn't. I always had theories since I was 18 years old, right? Pretty semi plausible or pretty plausible theories. But at the end of the day, that's one thing I hadn't fully answered. I didn't deem it super important enough. I had enough evidence around the board for everything else. Not really necessary. But in writing this book, that's what I mean. It was like a little hole left there. It was like, well, if I don't mention the seven heads and people are reading my book, and trying to, they're trusting what I'm saying and, comparing it to scripture, they're going to see that I've omitted that, right? And they'll be like, well, did he omit it because it contradicts everything he's saying? So I don't want something like that to arise. So I was like, I have to address the seven heads, which means I actually have to solve it for myself. So with faith in my studies and everything I've figured so far with Islam and everything, I trusted in faith that I wouldn't find anything that would contradict anything, blah, blah, blah. Long story short, what I found only confirmed everything. So I got to include that in my book, and I'm happy that I did take this little bit extra, extra few days, excuse me, extra few days, because that even though it's minor, a little thing like that just patches it all together. Excuse me. Good Lord. My throat's so dry, I just can't swallow. Anyways, so I'm just taking a mental breather right now because like I'm getting like cramps in my hands, arthritis, and like sometimes my brain just goes like when I've been typing and writing for hours, my brain just like thinks to itself, I've had enough. And even though I'm forcing myself to write, and pushing past the hand pain or putting ice packs in my hand to help it out, even though I knew that my brain just shuts off, like it starts to like get flustered, and then like I psychologically cannot keep going. So I hit that brick wall again 5 minutes ago, and I've got to just take a nice mental break and let everything calm down, and I can get back to this. I'm also considering that maybe the dark side is working against me, so I've had to say prayers for that there. I don't want something to happen. Like the other day when I was finishing off the book, I got serious chest pains. Right, I didn't tell anybody else in my family that I got bad chest pains to the point where I'm like, okay, don't tell me I'm gonna die. Don't tell me I'm gonna die while writing this book. You know what I mean? I had to sit there and actually beg God for me not to die, and I'm still on edge about that. You know what I mean? From what it could happen any moment again, type thing. You know what I mean? So I'm not being flippant about it, and it scared the life out of me. I think it happened like two, maybe three times in the last week, but it happened yesterday or the day before, and bad type of pain. The only thing I could figure with all my experience with various lung or chest problems is that it could be clots, or I don't know, like someone in my family got COVID recently, but I tested and I don't have it and I'm not sick. But I was worried maybe I got COVID, you know what I mean? And that was like, because I've had a lung embolism years ago, I'm one of those candidates who will probably die from it if I get the disease. So I've never got it in all these years, right? That I'm aware of. Never got it. Um, thank God for that. But, my family member, and I was near them and I was worried that I got it, but I tested fine and I'm not sick. When I felt all that stuff, it felt like it was in my lungs, and I'm just like, oh Lord, the lung cancer. I don't know. It could be lung cancer. But I did get my lungs X-rayed a couple years ago after I had my embolism. I had my embolism 3 or 4 years ago, and after that, so it was less than 3 or 4 years. I had an X-ray because I went to the hospital for a pain in my chest, and I was worried I had another embolism building up, or a clot. You know what I mean? So they X-rayed it, and they also said that they couldn't see any cancer. Now, people at the hospital are a bunch of ding dongs. They screw up everybody's diagnosis all the time. They did with my dad when he was dying. They do with lots of people that I know. So I don't really trust them. But they told me, I mean, they could be right, but they told me I don't have any cancer, right? But cancer, like with my dad, the type my dad got, appeared and grew from nothing to everything and killed him within. It's the type that does it within 3 months, but he died within like 2 months. So it like came from nowhere, brrr, multiplied, spread through everything, killed everything. Um, Allegedly, because they claim they never saw any cancer all the years, like 10 years he had medical problems they couldn't figure out, and they tested him, send him away to Boston, all this and that, there, all the checks and tests. Oh, you don't have cancer, you don't have any other disease that we could find, blah 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 blah. So trusting them, he got the type that kills within 3 months, but maybe he did have it for a while. But anyways, you know what I mean. I could still have developed lung cancer in the last few years. It could be more clots. With all these people with the virus around and all the other stuff they've made people do and all that. You have all these things that are causing reactions in people. You know what I mean? I know all the science behind it because I read the medical studies. So I've known for years now that, you could be clean as a whistle, but just because everybody else around you and what they've got in them now, things, but anyways, so I'm always worried that, like secondary, I don't know what the proper terms are, right? But I'm always worried that I'm just gonna like absorb it one day, and have some type of problem. um because that type of thing happens to people. You don't necessarily get sick with it and all that, but like you get these weird problems happening. So anyways, all I can do is at least hope that I get this Blinken book done, right? So even if I do drop dead, then everybody else is cool to go. But I don't know. It is what it is, right? I can't do anything about it. And if the end days is coming, I would like to at least see it. Maybe I would, maybe I wouldn't. I would at least like to see it happen. I don't want to die weeks before the end days come, or months, or a year, or something. But yeah, another important thing. This is ironic too, right? See, naming a book is very, very important. Takes a lot of consideration. Sometimes the name of the book, right? Unless you have a simple no-brainer name, but like the name of the book is so important that I would like to say, so to speak, it takes more effort and time to conceive the title and to decide on a title than it does to write most of the book. Because you will spend from day one to the last moment fussing and thinking what's the right title for all these millions of different reasons, right? It's very hair picking. Now, in that process, for me, I came to a ironic conclusion. This is so funny because I've been the 2023 guy for so long, right? I've never been the 2024 guy. But in going to name my book, long story short, it's ironically going to have 2024 in it. I don't want to rule out 2023 from the title, although technically I should, because, and I've always said this from day one, right? It's not that I'm changing my tune or anything, right? And I explain it properly in the book, and I can explain it now in case anybody's confused, right? The 6,000 years ends in 2023, right? So by default, one should assume that 2023 is the final year. Like it's the 6,000. That year has to finish. It has to transpire for the 6,000 years to be finished, right? So I've always known it because it's common sense from day one that, yeah, 2023 is the end. It's the final year. It's the end of days, blah, 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 blah. There's nothing wrong or inaccurate in anything that I've said or how I've said it, blah, 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 right? And it takes a little bit more explanation, right? Bear with me, because of flux of a year and all that, right? But one perspective is that it shouldn't happen, like things shouldn't actually happen in 2023. It should actually happen right at the end of it, right? But I've always said that from day one, right? But from day one, I've said to be safe, right? Because 2023 is a number in all the formulas, right? So it's the end of days. It's only that one line of thought about the 6,000 years, which isn't as bona fide a prophecy as all the other, prophecies like Daniel's prophecy and Isaiah's and all the other ones I cover, right? 6,000 year ones, like it's not in the Bible. It's just something people have thought of, right? But still extremely compelling, and it could actually be legit anyways, right? Because it makes perfect sense. But so like I was saying, that's just one line of thought. All the numbers and the formulas and the prophecies 2023. So to be sensible, fair, and safe for my own and safe for my own soul, and for my teachings. If you're teaching things to people, you're accountable if you mislead them, right? So you have to be very, very careful. I don't ever want to get in trouble for stuff like that. So to be safe, I've always considered and said from day one, 6 years ago, that it could happen in 2023. And anybody who's known my channels over these years will have heard me say that a million times, right? It could happen anytime in 2023. I've always said it could happen at the start, anytime during 2023. It could happen very well at the very end of 2023 and at the start of 2024. I've always said that it could happen some point during 2024, right? Usually I would say, in the earlier part. So, but in one respect, like I said, no fairness, 2023, I mean, it is logical when you think about it. It's the final year. It's got to finish and complete. But the other catch is it could complete according to Rosh Hashanah on the Hebrew calendar, which would be, September time. So that's why there's multiple reasons why I've always, touted it, simplified it as just 2023 for these multiple reasons. It could very well be a few months before the end. It could actually be in 2023 for these very logical reasons. Another very good reason why it could have been in 2023, and that's why I always said it from day one, is because of year flux, right? If an event happened in a January, or if it happened in a December, or if it happened in the middle of the year, that makes a difference, right? If you're talking about an important guy was born, or he conquered an important city in a certain year, that's just the year. That's very generalized. He might have done it at the very last month or week or day of that year, or at the first day. You see my point? That's where you get what I call a natural year of flux. And, it's being super reserved just considering that there's 1 year of flux. I mean, in all fairness, maybe you should have more more flux range. But being as strict as possible and reasonable, I only allow for 1 year of flux for the aforementioned reason. So that only allows for one date on all the given, chronologies and stuff, only for one date to have that perfectly reasonable, dead real aspect to reality. But because of that reality, it could happen in 2023, right? Even if it's, the end of, you know what I mean? So it could happen in 2023. It could happen in 2024 at any point in 2024. I would like to think that the most likely time is right at the end of 2023, whether Gregorian calendar or Hebrew or whatever, that the technicality I would like to think would be at when 2023 ends. That would signify when the 6,000 are done and blah, 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 blah. But we don't know which date it goes by. God could have fixated on a certain specific criteria, and it might be going from that point. For example, in 1948, it was it, May or March 15th when Israel was reborn. It was liberated from the dominion of Islam after the Arab War and all of that. right? What if God didn't pick the date in that month? What if he went by when the legal paperwork was finished, or however it's looked at? Maybe it's a different criteria. You know what I mean? But a reasonable, logical criteria. There are other viable options. I, like most people, go with the most seemingly obvious one, which is 1948, the general context, which is the general year. But when you start fussing about exactly when important dates and marker points are, that's where you get this natural year flux, right? So by that right, it could happen anytime in 2023 or anytime in 2024. And I've said this since day one. But now that it comes to the point of, I scared the cat there. Now that it comes to the point where I got to name the book, right? Instead of going with what I was going to do, I have to include 2024. You know why? Because if I don't, and nothing happens in 2023, everybody's going to think I'm stupid. If people see the book, they're not even going to buy it. Even if, just say, the book became an international bestseller, and then at the end of 2023, it's still on the shelves, nothing happened, but just saying, maybe it's about to happen. You know what I mean? People are going to look at that book and think, oh, it was a lie. He was a false prophet. He was a failure. They're not going to take it and get it. And when the end does come, however many weeks, days, months, whatever later, they will have lost out. You know what I mean? So I can't just leave the title as 2023. I have to include 2024. And I don't think it's fair to rule out 2023 because I even consider, like, well, why not just stick it to 2024? I mean, I'm more inclined, like I was explaining, to believe it will actually be at the end of 2023 anyways. But for all the aforementioned reasons, I think I have to have both dates in the title. But that's going to look strange. So these are the little things that are just holding me back a little bit. So, I mean, if any of you have any suggestions for a title, feel free to throw me one out there. I want to mention the 7 pillars of scriptural proof in the title. My book titles always end up being long, right? And everybody says, oh, you need shorter titles. But I think longer titles are better, right? They define it better. And that's the important thing, right? The book cover and title advertise the book, right? People see that before they see the description, right? And it doesn't matter what fancy imagery you have on it. The title is very important, right? You could have the most beautiful book cover, most beautiful imagery on it, but the book title might be earwax. You're not going to buy that book, right? So the title is very important. You could have a blank white cover, but have a very interesting, compelling title, and you're like, oh wow, you won't care what pictures on the cover. You know what I mean? So the title is very, very important. And I think having a longer title is better if you need to have a longer title. So I want to include 7 pillars of scriptural proof because each one of those words is very important to get across. 7, because there's 7 of them. I don't want to just make it look like, oh, I made a biblical discovery. No, there's 7 important things. The 7 is important because there are 7 things that all connect together and prove the outcome of 2023, 2024. You know what I mean? So I have to mention 7. I I want to use the word pillar and keep that up because that gives you in your mind an idea of a strong pillar, and that's what these things are. They're supporting. They connect the base to the top. You know what I mean? They're part of the structure. So the 7 pillars, and what are they? Proof. 7 pillars of proof. What should I call it? 7 proofs? No, 7 pillars of scriptural proof. Because if you're a biblical person, you want scriptural evidence for things, right? So I really want that to be like the subtitle, the 7 pillars of scriptural proof, right? Um, but that's the problem for me. It's hard to think of the titles. I don't know what to go by. But thank you for the suggestion. But what I also want to do. I mean, being realistic, right? I'm being a little bit flippant about the end days. If the end days do come, even if they're a year or two away, I'm just saying, if they do come, that's a dead serious topic, right? So the book has to tell everybody all of these important elements. It has to convey them all just in its title. So the end days is a super critical thing. And if they are coming and if this is all right, the title has to be able to relay that. So I don't want to use the word apocalypse or Armageddon. I don't want to use, the buzzword rapture. But I will, I'm hoping to use that in the title. I'm hoping like maybe like 2023 slash or dash 2024 all in big, right? Um, end days rapture, or rapture comma end days, something like that there, right? So that way people see the key important things, which are the dates. You know what I mean? They're not just seeing 2023 and being misunderstood or misled, or just 2024, and likewise they're seeing both, right? That's important. um the way it will, like 2020, blah blah blah, end days, blah blah blah, that will catch people's eyes. And just in that little description, they get the imagery right there. Oh, end days, the 2020 blah 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 end days, and rapture, right? So just in that short mental imagery, it'll convey important things. So I'm thinking maybe along those type of lines, if you see my point. um I see what you mean with like a more poetic, like, you know what I mean, like poetic type title. I mean, ideally, it would be nice. I mean, my title, like my title from my other book, comes out too like doctory and like too fancy and technical in terms. But I don't know. This is how I think. Anyways, again, I'm just here taking a mental break, letting my hands relax so I can get back to the book. But yeah, the seven heads of the beast. So like I said, I kept with my faith that everything I've discovered is correct, and all that established is correct. And so it's my time to solve it. Anyways, long story short, forget how I solved it. It's too confusing to explain. Um, the first head is actually, oh, the only reason I had to explain it is because John says that the five have fallen. So that proves to you they can't be Islamic heads, right? And yada yada. It takes so much explanation, right? Long story short, everybody, anyways, accepts it, and it's something I've always considered, anyways, that they are the seven beast kingdoms, right? And then what you have to do is, because Daniel's talked about four, Daniel's fourth is John's one. So before the four, what came? Well, John says that five have fallen, one is, and one is to come. So, anyways, I had to do all the historical research. I had to go check a million different things. Anyways, I did it all, blah blah blah, and what I found feels concrete. Is pretty rock solid. Actually, I still have it right here, so I can just read it. um, I gotta scroll back down here. And like I have a chapter breaking down Revelations that ended up being absolutely huge. Um, oh, that's right. I moved it up to this chapter. That's why. Let's find it so I don't have to read from memory. I don't. This book might even be 150 or 200 pages right now. I don't know. I hope not. Yes, I'm getting. It's taking like this long to scroll up. Just ridiculous. One sec. Okay, here we go. Yeah, so the first head was Assyria. So I used to always think that the first head was probably like Babel. That was one idea I had when I was 18. Even Atlantis, I considered. um, and then Egypt is the one I just went with because, like I said, this is like the one thing I didn't care enough about to really, go down that long dirt road to try and solve. Um, I had loose ideas what it probably could be, and it just didn't matter that much, or I didn't care. So I always just kept on the side slot there, Egypt. That's probably what it was, right? But I had my little important epiphany, little tiny one, but it really made everything work together. It says in Revelation 17 that these are kings, right? Now, yeah, king has a kingdom, blah, 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 but it stresses that they're kings, whereas in other places it stresses that they're kingdoms, right? Anyways, so my point is that, excuse excuse me, there's seven kings. In verse 10, and there are seven kings, the five did fall, the one is, the other did not yet come. Right, so you look at the list. First one was Assyria. King Shalmaneser, he conquered and sieged Israel. So the key thing here, the key condition I learned is these are kings who conquered Israel. I had to sift through all the blah, 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 and look at the common denominators. And here you go. You can hear for yourself right now, even before the book is published, right? It's pretty cool. So the first head was Assyria. Proof King Shalmaneser conquered and he sieged Israel. He is fallen. Second head, everybody knows Babylon. King Nebuchadnezzar conquered and sieged Israel. He is fallen. Third head, Medes and Persians under King Cyrus, who conquered Israel. He is fallen. Fourth head was Greece under King Alexander, who conquered Israel. Fallen. The fifth head is Rome. Now, that's not saying Rome is the beast. He's just the king, right? And which king? The fifth head, Rome, King Herod, because I didn't know until today. I probably read it and forgot. I didn't know that King Herod conquered Israel. I thought he was just like he was one of the rulers and they all ruled Israel already. But like, no, Herod conquered Israel and he sieged Israel. So there you go. The fifth head was Rome. The next guy from Alexander, and that was like 37 BC or something, if I remember correctly. So he conquered and sieged Israel. That's the fifth. So just like John said, the five have come and fallen. The sixth one is. Now, who is the sixth one? When did John write Revelations? Everybody argues. It's somewhere between 50 AD and 100 AD. That's all we know for sure. There is evidence. I don't have it open on the screen. I didn't even bother to include it in the book because the book is just getting way too large with all this extra fluff. But there are verses in John or in Revelation which give, and I did lots of like side research, and there was a lot of different sources saying, oh, well, if you look at what John said here, it shows that he must have written it before 70 AD, before the siege, right? So just going with that, because again, this is just a minor fluff point. I don't care enough to get into all that nitty gritty detail. It's not necessary, right? But we know he wrote it between 50 and 100, right? So the sixth head I'm saying is King Titus. Why? Because he's the, and I checked. I went through all the rulers of Rome. I checked, did anybody else other than Rome rule over Israel and conquer it or siege it? I had to check everything out. The only one who could fit here in the sixth spot is King Titus. Why? Because he conquered and sieged Israel. Okay, he's the one who did it in 70 AD. Okay, and that is around the time when John wrote Revelation. So there you go. The one is. So when John said the one is, that was Titus. Titus conquered and sieged Israel in what was it, 69 or I think 70 AD, right? So makes perfect sense. And the seventh, the final head, is Islam, like I talked about, who also conquered and sieged Israel. All historically verified facts here. So for myself, I solved the seven heads, and that's important. So I stuck that in the book. But that took quite a few hours today to figure that one out. I also found out something else interesting. I already knew it, but I wanted to get better like verification before I put it in a book that I published. So how does, and I think I actually, thank goodness I thought of that. I might have to explain this as well in the book. Because I went through the effort of listing those seven kings off, right? What connection would Islam have to the first king, right? Actually, I think I already did write it. I'm just getting confused now. What connection would Islam, the seventh, the eighth head, have to the first? Because the first one is slain and is like rehealed, reborn as the seventh, right? In whatever way they word it. So there's some type of like connection, like emulation, something, right? A parallel. What connection is there between Islam and Assyria? Because I had to find out who it was first. So I found out it's Assyria, right? Who was it? Whatever his name was. Shalmaneser or something. So what's the connection between Assyria and Islam? So I looked at the founder of Islam. I thought, okay, I knew he came from a tribe and they worshipped, like the Babylonian deities and all that. Anyways, long story short, I got the verified proof for it. I looked up what the historians said. I found evidence in like the Pakistani press, which is Muslim. And I already knew anyways from Muslim sources that they say the following. The fact is that the founder of Islam came from a tribe who lived in the Arab land. Okay. So like genetically, like racially, they weren't Assyrian. That's one thing I looked up to see if he was Assyrian and if that connection was on the like genetic premise, right? They had a genetic connection, which I didn't really think was a great one, but I wanted to weigh out all things, right? So I couldn't get any connection between him and Assyrian in terms of, like genetics, right? So Assyria had its own religion. I've never studied Assyrian religion, but I know it's basically Babylonian, right? Just like Sumeria, Akkad, all of those, they might have had slightly different names for the guys, for the gods and all that, but it was all one religion. Any historian or scholar would tell you that, right? It's not my invention. So they'd be like stylized and culturalized, right? But it's all the one same thing, and they like shared the same texts and everything. I'm pretty sure. Um, so what connection was there? So I knew that his tribes people worshipped the day before Islam came along. So before he had his vision and founded that religion, um, his tribes people worshipped the god that they did in their Arab land, which was in their tribes, which was Al Ela. Okay, and Al Ela was the name of the moon god of the Babylonians. Okay, but when I looked it up and I learned more about Assyria, because I never really read too much about Assyria before. Um, when I read into it, yeah, confirmed and verified. Yep, they did have the same religion basically as Babylon, same gods, everything. And yes, in Assyrian mythology, they worship the deity named Sin. Ironically, of all names, there's got to be Sin. And the moon god Sin had the official title of the god, as if he was like the greatest or most important, right? So the title, the god, is Al Ela, okay? And these are ancient times of the Syrians, like 1700 BC. These are ancient Assyrians. So they worshipped Al Ela, okay? Now, whilst the Assyrians uh, didn't primarily dwell or even rule the Arabian region where his tribe's people came from. At the end of the day, problem is the thing his tribe's people were worshiping the Assyrian deity, Al Ela. And historians, everybody says that Al Ela was simply shortened, which was a tradition at the time, all throughout history actually, to shorten these longer and hyphenated names. And Al Ela is and was, it's not my theory, was shortened to Allah. And Allah means the highest, right? Or most high. And what did Al Ela mean? The God, which implies the greatest God, right? So it's the same thing. It's just a shortened form, over thousands of years. Thousands of years, it's the same thing. So picture this. I'm looking for a connection here. His tribes people, who he was, they worshipped Al Ela. And if you go look from, say, in a perspective of Islam, where they try to talk about their heritage and all of that, they'll say that, oh, our peoples always worshipped the one true great God. And they'll cite these things. They'll say, like, oh, our ancestors called God Al Ela. We always called him Allah. So even from their own perspective, this is their defense. So they basically admit to it. So they worship the Assyrian moon god. That's what it was. So that's pretty astonishing. So I verified it and I put that in part of the chapter there. But the reason I had to do that is because Revelation 17 says that the first head is like whatever the word is, like reborn, remolded, in becomes the seventh, right? Um, so that makes perfect sense because it's not necessarily, the kings or, the thing, put it this way, the thing that makes a beast nation unique is its religion, what they believe. It's not necessarily how they look or how they dress and stuff like that. It's what they believe. That's the most important thing. And Assyria worshipped Al Ela, who they say was Allah, and by all their thinking is Allah. So that's who they're worshiping, is Al Ela, Allah of Assyria. Sin, the moon god Sin. It's just so ironic, it's not even funny. So, anyways, so historians say that when he created the religion, Islam, he wanted to incorporate their high God. He made monotheism, a monotheistic version of it, by ruling out all their other pantheon of deities, but he stuck with the one, the highest. And it's even tied over in like language wise, like entomology, I think it's called, to El from Babylonian, because Assyrian was so similar to Babylonian, right? And it gets even deeper too, because King Cyrus worshipped the Babylonian god. King Marduk, it's in the Cyrus seal. He gives all his praise to Marduk, the god of Babylon. So, you know what I mean? There you go. That's all the evidence you need. So the Assyrian deity worship was reborn with Islam, just in disguise, right? And we're told that it would be the Lamb-like beast, the false prophet, who forces everybody to worship this beast kingdom of Islam. And that's exactly what he did. He went around, like literally went around making everybody worship this new religion and submit to their empire which they were trying to form. So it's absolute fulfillment. And the whole time they're worshiping the moon god Sin. Hallelujah. They go and build a temple to the moon god, boom, on the Temple Mount, right? They build the dome on the Temple Mount, so and everything else. So they even have moon imagery and statues in things like it. That's what it is. So that was that ancient evil, so to speak. I don't want to be disrespectful, but that was that ancient thing coming back to life, right? That's just one of the little tiny nuts I hadn't cracked yet, but I had to make my book thorough. So, anyways, it ties everything together, and it's good enough for me. So, anyways, I'm just airing out my head. You think that's a huge find? Well, it's definitely important. Don't get me wrong, because everybody always fusses. I don't know which one exactly you're talking about, but like the seven heads, it says are seven mountains. You know, it says later the harlot sits on seven hills. Everybody's had all these ideas. Oh, it's Rome, it's the Vatican. They're on seven hills. It's like people don't know. Mecca is on seven hills. Atlantis was literally seven mountains that rose up out of the sea. This is why I used to think Atlantis was the beast, right? Atlantis literally was seven mountains. Literally, like if you read the ancient Atlantis text, they rose up out of the ocean. I mean, that's what sea mountains are. They rise up out of the ocean. Seven mountains, and each mountain had a king. If you read the Plato's text, that's what it was. They had seven core kings, one for each mountain, each island. And then they were a democratic system. So on top of that, they also had a system of 10 kings. It's exactly like what John says in Revelation. I mean, it's the only thing in all history, and some say it's myth, right? But it's the only thing in history that just neatly slots right in, bam, to what John said with no fluff. You know what I mean? But I had to rule it out because, Atlantis and all that. But my point is that I was trying to stress that, it seems like there's a lot of evidence for that. That's what people do. They go down these avenues. They think, oh, the Vatican's on seven hills. It must be the Vatican, right? And, there are like elements where like the Vatican seems to connect to stuff and, they were guilty of things. And, there's little teaser type things here and there. And pretty much everywhere you look, you'll find little teasers like that. But at the end of the day, if the Vatican's on seven hills and Mecca's on seven hills, that's 50-50 right there. Then you got Atlantis, that makes it 30-30-30. You know what I mean? There's actually a lot of different, like bad boy nations that are on seven hills. Even Jerusalem's on seven hills. I didn't know that for a long time, but Jerusalem is on seven hills. And ironically, the book of Revelation, which is said by Jesus, I'm only smiling because so many people don't know this and makes me laugh. I didn't know this for a long time too. The book of Revelation literally identifies Israel, Jerusalem, whichever one, identifies Jerusalem as the harlot Babylon. It literally has a verse. I put it in my book. I've always known it, right? Well, for the last few years, right? But I've always known there was this verse, right? But I figured out who was talking about. But it has this verse that says, the great city is where our Lord was crucified. Oh, we only have one Lord. And Jesus was crucified in Jerusalem. So, unfortunately, Jerusalem is the harlot Babylon. But that makes sense because, yes, God punishes other nations, but he's more concerned about disciplining, writing books about his nation and punishing his nation and people for the things they did wrong. So that's really what it's all about, right? It's just crazy because like even I didn't know that years ago. I would look at people if they said that and think, what are you nuts? Right? But the Bible, the book, the very book that we're reading and all these Christians debate and argue, make theories over, it tells you in that book what the great city is. It's Jerusalem. So, but people think, oh, it's Vatican, it's this and it's that, but it tells you what it is, right? But those are just seven hills that the harlot's on. And it talks about, maybe it's the seven heads, whatever, but At the end of, oh, well, there you go. Thank you. Was well, yeah, yeah, but oh my lord, I got to put this in my book too. Oh yeah, this makes perfect sense. Whether it says hills or mountains, if it says mountains, it works better in my favor now because if the harlot Israel, Jerusalem, sits on the heads, and it says the heads hate the harlot and do war with her, they try to kill each other, so they're not friends. Like some poorly studied Christians, I've heard it say that they work with each other. No, they don't. It says they hate each other, right? The way he describes it symbolically, she's riding the beast, but ignorant people think, oh, that means they're working together, right? They hate each other. Think about this: Jerusalem, Israel, was what by all those seven heads that I just said? It was conquered. There you go. That makes perfect sense. So if you picture it, that's Jerusalem, that's Israel on each one of the seven heads. Shalmaneser conquered Israel, fought with the harlot. Then, just can't remember them all off the top of my head. All the other seven fought with Israel. There you go. That's perfect. I got to put that in the book too. That's a good observation, right? So yeah, it all ties together. It really, really does. It really, really does. But yeah, it would also be nice if I really should devote a few hours tonight to try to see if I could find another piece of evidence for this book, like a significant one. Like I've got like a 10 or 20 pages of supplementary stuff, and it's just way too much. Um, but like it would be good, like if I could find another big major find. But for years, I've been doing this for a long time. Like after I found the first few pillars, I really thought that's all there was. A lot of these other pillars that I found, I literally just discovered in the last like year or few months. Like because I pushed myself to look and look. I looked up every like form of number or unit of time in the Bible, everything you could think of, like exhaustively, trying desperately to find something else. That's the only reason and way I found all these extra things, right? So I think I have exhausted everything. But every time I've said that, I push and find something else. So maybe there is something else. I don't know. Did the prophecy of 2300 with Daniel, but I don't know. To be honest, I do have enough evidence in the book as it is. This is way more than enough. Like way more than enough. Like a lot of people would take one of the pillars and write a whole book just about that and be sufficed. Like that's all they need to convince them, right? But I got seven. Maybe I don't need to have eight. I mean, I do have seven pillars, and I have like 7 or 10 pieces of supplementary stuff. Um, Maybe I don't need to bother. I don't know, but my instinct tells me I need to sit down and devote a little bit of time. That's what I'm going to do right after this video, man. I'm going to do the right thing. I'm going to take a couple hours to sit down and look, see if I can find something else. Because you never know, man. It could be something that just floated right over everybody's heads, like always happens. But anyways, I'm glad I took this breather. Oh yeah. That's I didn't even. I'm really dopey. I didn't even think of that. That is a good suggestion, menorah. I could have a menorah on the cover. That would be a free because you have to use if you use any copyright image, you have to pay for it. I was thinking, what am I going to do for my cover? Last time I just used a stock image that Amazon supplies, right? They have a huge selection, right? It was a dove, good enough, right? Dove is perfect. So I stuck the dove on the cover, and I had some lambs on the back cover grazing in some grass. Perfect. So I stuck that on there. But now I do have a new computer, and I've got all my nice photos that I've taken. Maybe I could put a nice photo. I don't know, one of the pretty sunset photos that I've done. I don't know. I was considering that, but now that you mentioned that, there you go. Um, and I could still call it seven pillars because if I call it branches, that takes away from the strength symbolism. Like pillar makes you think like big, strong pillar, right? But I could still call it seven pillars and just have the picture of a menorah because it'll process right then and there. I don't have to worry about that. Yeah. And by having the menorah, it'll catch the eye of more people in terms of Judaism and Christianity, not just Christians. You know what I mean? If I stuck Jesus on the cover, not a single Jewish person would ever even look at the book. If I stuck a menorah on there, the seven pillars of scriptural proof, they're going to pick it up and look at it. You know what I mean? So, exactly, yeah. So yeah, that's a good idea. They must have a stock menorah picture, right? They must. If they don't have one, I might be in trouble because there's no menorahs in my country. I'm pretty sure. I ain't going around to all the churches to see if they have a Christian menorah, but well, I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I just don't think of any churches that have menorahs. Is my point. I'm not going to go around asking, "Hey, do you have a menorah hanging around?" I'm not doing that. But hopefully, they have a stock image of a menorah because it's like the biggest key imagery for Judaism. And Jesus had the thing of the menorah in Revelation as well, right? So even Christians have that idea of menorah. So yeah, thank you. I'm glad I asked for. Well, I'm glad you gave me that advice, whether I asked for it or not. Thank you. Um, yeah, because I was really thinking about what picture to use. That would save me from worrying about what picture. A menorah has 7 branches. Boom. There you go. Right. So yes, that I'm just resolving it in my mind. I think I probably will just go with a menorah. Because if I have a picture of a nice sunset, that doesn't scream Bible. You know what I mean? A menorah does, right? Menorah like screams holy and important, sacred. You know what I mean? Hmm. There we go. And I want to use the nice royal bluish color because in Judaism, blue is a very important color. Like the throne of God has blue symbolism and all that. Um, but also, I like blue, so I might just have because I'm picturing it too, like a blue background, like a rich nice blue, solid blue type color, not light, not dark, but just a nice blue, like a regal blue, and then like golden menorah. Like I don't even care how the menorah looks. If it's a real menorah sitting on a table, that might be nice, or just a image of a menorah. I think either would work. Which one would be better? I don't think I'd have to see if they have any first before I worry about all that detail. But yeah, 99% sure I'm probably gonna go with menorah on the cover. So there you go. Um, then I just gotta fuss about that title. But I think I'm just gonna keep it as simple as keep as few keywords as necessary. Be 2023 2024. Gotta have both of those, like I said, and 7 pillars of scriptural. I don't know. I'm gonna have to think about it. I don't want to have it too long. How long has my video been? An hour. Good God, that's not even real. Anyways, I do feel more relaxed now from this. I'm going to go do a quick micro study and see if I could discover something else. Um, I've been abstaining from some sins recently too in these last few days and trying to tidy up, make myself better because I can't be writing books like this and, not being more upstanding. Plus, with these pains in my chest and the possibility of the end coming, this is what I'm supposed to be doing anyways. So I have felt the blessings increase since I did that. I don't know if it's coincidence, but it's true. Like some things I can't mention, some things I don't need to bother mentioning. But I've had the blessings come. Even some little odd things like a red bird came around. I never had a red bird come around to my door. I left seeds out and he actually came around. But red birds go to my mom's house. Um, I don't know. It's very interesting. And he was like looking at me. He was like tweeting and looking at me like he wanted to go to the seeds. I'm like, hey, go get the seeds, right? He was like, and I made a little video of it. There's little things. I had some really cool things happen too, but I just can't talk about it because it's too private. So the blessings have been increasing. That might actually be a sign that Jesus was right. If you're good like Jesus, good things happen to you, and you can do miracles. That's what I'm aiming for next. Maybe if I get even better, I could start doing some miracles or something. Um, that's what I've always believed. I believed if you're actually righteous, then you can do miracles. It's like a superpower that unlocks, but only when you're righteous. You know what I mean? Or unless God decrees you need to. Like maybe there's a car accident, you need to lift somebody out of a car, and you get superhuman strength or something. You know what I mean? But but yeah, but I don't think I'm that good enough to become some biblical superhero in terms of righteousness. Just being realistic, but I need to try harder. Um, Anyways, folks, thank you for tuning in and watching. I really, really needed to do that. My hands, they lock up really bad. I would show you the cat. He looks very cute sleeping on the couch, but I can't because I got too many wires up to my computer. Hey, kitty. I don't want to wake him up. Anyways, folks, thank you. I'll do another stream later tonight to break up the monotony again. But my book is like, it's probably gonna go off tonight. So please, please, I'm just having faith that I don't need to ask for stuff like this, but just in case, please pray, because I'm so used to Murphy's Law screwing me over in life. Like, you don't know, like, I am the vortex for Murphy's Law, um, in the worst ways possible. Like, just say a little prayer if you want. I'm not forcing anybody to just ask God, please keep, what is it, like, the negative forces away from me so I could get this book done, right, and approved, because there's always the risk, like, they could reject it. You know what I mean? There's always that there too. I don't want to think about it. Just having faith. I have faith that I'm gonna get it done. Send it off tonight. They're gonna say yep, bam, and stamp it out. And get quick. I think it's a 24-hour turnaround. I think they'll tell you like right away if it's been. No, I think it takes 3 days. They have to have a panel of people review it, right? So, anyways, I got so nervous about all this earlier today. It might be why I was getting some chest pains recently. I'm getting nervous to complete the book, and that's why I kind of think there are dark forces here, because like I don't really know why I was getting so much adrenaline, and it was like pounding my heart, and the chest pain things, and I'm just like, what is it, cancer? Like I was saying, is it clots? Do I have a lot of cholesterol? That's one thing I probably haven't had checked. I don't know, but I don't eat enough. I don't really eat unhealthy enough for all that. Maybe it's the dark side. Like he just didn't want me to achieve this, and just trying to, you know, screw me over. That's what I considered. I was sitting there last night or whatever day it was, thinking like, gee, how many cups of coffee did I drink when all the pain was going through my chest or my lungs, whichever one. Pericarditis or myocarditis. That's the thing I was thinking earlier. Like the side effect thing you can absorb, even if you don't get the disease itself. You can get. Anyways, I'm not getting into all that. I don't want to get in trouble for saying something medical on my video, because I had that happen once before. Um, anyways, so I got to be careful. Anyways, it's up to you. You don't have to pray anything, but I know how the world works. I know how Murphy's Law works, and I know how the devil works. And I know I'm not a super excellent, worthy person, so I know how it all works. And I could get screwed over. My book could get rejected. Maybe I'll have a heart attack and I won't get to finish it. Something stupid, you know what I mean? So any prayers would be appreciated and grateful. Just some simple, like steer me away from the, I don't know, negativity, dark side, something like that. I've said it a million times already. So, anyways, hey, kitty. No, he's deep asleep. Cats are very strange. Like I could be here watching a show or a movie, blasting my speaker, and this cat's right here asleep. He doesn't even care. It's the weirdest thing. He's the best cat in the world. I hate cats, but he's the only cat I like. Anyways, check you all later. Thank you for stopping by.